The Korean mafia boss, Kim Min-jun, became furious when he noticed she had escaped from him that night. Sophia has lived with him as a toy for several years. He searched for years but never found her. But now, he finally found her when she returned to the city with her daughter. But then, his nephew, Kim Min-jun, returned back to the city. One week, Kim Min-jun visited a particular luxury bar, but his pride wouldn't allow him to look at her, but yet, he requested her service every night. Men like Kim Min-jun were observed, they did not observe. Attention flowed toward him by default. So when she passed again, there was silence, and he felt the insult before he recognized the fascination. It wasn't fear or ignorance. It was a choice that she made because she didn't fancy Kim Min-jun. She had seen him and decided he was not worth reacting to. That decision triggered the Korean mafia boss. She should celebrate whenever he calls her name. A member of Kim's group doesn't accept rejection. She has 5 days and she will be on my bed, screaming my name. He snapped. Welcome to AfroKorean Studios. You're probably wondering how Kim Min-jun was going to pull it off. Stick around and watch how everything unfolds. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more gripping episodes, and so the algorithm can help share this story with other Afro-Korean story lovers. Now, let's get back into it. The Green Exclusive Club existed to affirm men like him. It was built of shadows and whispers, a place where money softened into inevitability. Kim Min-jun had walked into rooms like this his entire life and felt the subtle rearrangement of power, the way conversations bent. His presence recalibrated atmospheres. Sophia did not recalibrate. She moved between tables with disciplined grace, a study in restraint. No flirtation. No false warmth. When she spoke, it was precise, economical. When she listened, it was with the detached attention of someone cataloging data, not indulging egos. Kim Min-jun watched her longer than was polite. He waited for the moment she would glance up, register him, soften. It never came. When she finally approached his table, tray balanced with irritating perfection, she didn't greet him by name. She didn't apologize for the wait. She didn't smile. "What can I get for you?" she asked. The question was professional. The tone was not deferential. Kim Min-jun leaned back in his chair, testing the boundaries of the space between them. "You already know what I drink." Her gaze flicked to his face, quick, assessing, and then away. "I serve a lot of people." It was a dismissal wrapped in courtesy. Pinot Noir. "The 2015, he said, enunciating carefully, watching for the telltale shift. "You'll want the 2016, she replied without hesitation. The 2015 was compromised by humidity issues. Correction. Calm. Unapologetic. A corner of his mouth lifted. The amusement surprised even him. From that night forward, Kim Min-jun requested her table. He told himself it was convenience. Efficiency. A preference for competence. Lies, all of them. The truth was simpler and more dangerous. He needed to understand why she resisted him. Sophia King. The name felt temporary, like a placeholder. He repeated it silently, tasting the syllables, measuring the distance between sound and substance. She served him with immaculate restraint. Never early. Never late. She placed his glass down with careful precision but never allowed her fingers to brush his. When he tipped generously, she accepted it without gratitude. When he praised the service, she acknowledged it with a nod devoid of warmth. Other women would have performed gratitude. Sophia performed control. It irritated him. It fascinated him. Kim Min-jun had built empires by recognizing patterns, predicting behaviors, exploiting weaknesses, anticipating desire. Sophia fit none of his models. She didn't seek advantage. She didn't angle for attention. She didn't fear consequence. But there were tells. He was certain of it. The way her shoulders stiffened when he used her name. The way she always positioned herself an exact step beyond his reach. The way her eyes tracked exits without conscious thought. She wasn't indifferent. She was alert. Fear, perhaps. The idea pleased him more than it should have. Fear meant awareness. Awareness meant he mattered. One evening, he observed her from across the room as she laughed quietly at something another waiter said. It was unguarded, brief, real. The sight struck him with unexpected force, a sharp possessive ache he hadn't felt in years. That laugh was not for him. That fact offended him deeply. When she returned to his table, he didn't bother masking his appraisal. You don't like me, he said. It was a statement designed to destabilize. Sophia placed his drink down, unhurried. I don't have opinions about guests. A lie. Clean and practiced. Kim Min-jun smiled. You do. You're simply disciplined enough not to show them. For the first time, her composure fractured. Just slightly. Her eyes lifted, sharp and guarded, meeting his fully. In that instant, something dangerous flickered between them, recognition without memory, familiarity without explanation. She recovered quickly. Is there anything else you need, sir? Sir. He savored the word. I need you, he said mildly. To serve my table exclusively tonight. Her jaw tightened. That isn't my decision. It is now. The pause that followed was infinitesimal. But he felt it. A recalculation. A concession made under protest. As you wish, she said. The words were obedient. The tone was not. The night unfolded in slow, deliberate tension. Kim Min-jun escalated not with touch but with proximity, leaning closer, lowering his voice, occupying space. Sophia resisted with stillness. She did not retreat, but she did not yield. He found the resistance intoxicating. By the time dessert arrived, his interest had sharpened into something bordering on obsession. He no longer wanted her compliance. He wanted her attention, voluntary, unguarded, undeniable. When another man brushed past their table and allowed his hand to linger too close to Sophia's waist, the reaction in Kim Min-jun was immediate and visceral. Possession flared hot and irrational. His fingers tightened on the edge of the table. Sophia sensed it. He saw it in the way her shoulders tensed, the way her breath caught. Then she did something extraordinary. She reached for his wine glass, and deliberately spilled it. Crimson liquid flooded the table, soaked into linen, splashed against his sleeve. The room froze. Sophia inhaled sharply, bracing herself, not for anger, but for consequence. I'm sorry, she said. Her voice trembled. Not with fear but with intent. Kim Min-jun stood slowly. The club held its breath. He studied her face, searching for humiliation, for submission, for regret. He found none. That was when he became furious, and it was his golden opportunity with the same girl who has been stressing the hell out of him. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really helps support the content and makes sure you never miss the next episode. More drama, more twists, more Afro-Korean stories coming your way. While he was furious, understanding immediately struck him with surgical clarity. She hadn't made a mistake. She had a reason for doing it. And in that moment, Kim Min-jun realized something that unsettled him far more than desire ever could. Sophia King knew exactly who he was. And whatever she was running from had just decided to collide with him instead. Sophia was expecting consequences, public dismissal, a thinly veiled threat, perhaps even the quiet humiliation of being reassigned to menial tasks for daring to speak out of turn the night before. Instead, the message from Kim Min-jun's assistant was brief and disarmingly polite. Mr. Kim would like to see you. Privately. She stood outside his office longer than necessary, smoothing invisible creases from her uniform, schooling her expression into something neutral. When she entered, Min-jun looked up from his desk with a measured calm that unsettled her more than anger ever could. He studied her the way one might study a rare material, without urgency, but with intent. He noticed, as he had the night before, how her spine straightened the moment his gaze met hers. How she did not lower her eyes. How the apology he expected never came. "Sit," he said. She didn't. Not immediately. "I'd prefer to stand," Sophia replied. Something flickered across his face, amusement, perhaps. Or appreciation. He gestured again, more casually this time, and she took the chair opposite him, perching at the edge as though ready to leave at a moment's notice. Min-jun leaned back, fingers steepled. "Do you know why you're here?" "For clarification," she said. "I assume." He smiled faintly. "You assume correctly." Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. He realized then that her fear did not manifest in tremors or apologies. It sharpened her. It made her restrained, proud, dangerous in her own quiet way. And that drew him in more than compliance ever could. "I'm not here to punish you," he said at last. Sophia's brow furrowed, just slightly. "Then why?" "Because you interest me." The words were spoken plainly, without heat, which somehow made them worse. She shifted, crossing her arms. "That's not a reason." "For me, it is." He stood, moving around the desk with unhurried confidence. "Tonight, you'll serve me exclusively." Her jaw tightened. "That's highly irregular." "Irregular things often reveal the truth," he said. "You may refuse." They both knew she wouldn't. But she surprised him anyway. "I'll agree," Sophia said carefully, "on one condition." His eyes darkened, not with irritation, but with curiosity. "You're in no position to." "I will do my job," she continued, unflinching. "But I won't pretend. No flirting. No games. I keep my distance." Min-jun considered her, then nodded once. "As you wish." That night, she moved through his penthouse with quiet efficiency, every motion precise. She spoke only when necessary, her words clipped, professional. Her eyes remained guarded, assessing everything, the room, the lighting, the glasses laid out for tasting. He watched her from across the room, pretending to read while tracking the subtle shifts in her posture. The way her shoulders relaxed only when she thought she wasn't being observed. The way her attention sharpened when she worked. "May I?" she asked, lifting a crystal glass toward the light. He nodded. Sophia swirled the wine gently, watching the residue cling to the sides. "The legs are inconsistent," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "It was stored too warm." "You noticed that quickly," Min-jun said. She shrugged. "Habit." He joined her at the counter, close enough that he could feel the faint warmth radiating from her arm. They worked side by side, analyzing the bottle like collaborators rather than employer and staff. Their hands nearly touched as they reached for the same decanter, and the near contact sent a jolt through him that was both electric and deeply unsettling. It felt familiar. Too familiar. Their thoughts aligned effortlessly, finishing each other's observations without prompting. When she pointed out a flaw, he nodded, already having reached the same conclusion. It was as if they'd done this before, stood in quiet rooms, dissecting details, trusting each other's instincts. The chemistry between them was undeniable, thickening the air until it felt charged. Sophia seemed to sense it too. She stepped back abruptly, creating space between them. "I should check on the next course," she said. "Stay," Min-jun replied, the word slipping out before he could temper it. She hesitated, then turned back to him. For a moment, the careful distance she'd maintained cracked. Something vulnerable flashed across her face, recognition, perhaps. Or fear. They were close now. Close enough that he could see the faint scar near her collarbone, the steady rise and fall of her breath. His hand lifted almost of its own accord, hovering near her cheek. The world seemed to narrow to that single moment. Almost a kiss. Almost a confession. Sophia pulled away. She stepped back as if burned, her composure shaken. "This isn't appropriate," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Min-jun let his hand fall. He studied her, the way she struggled to regain control. "You feel it too," he said quietly. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because the familiarity frightened her more than attraction ever could. Because something about him felt like a door she'd locked long ago, now threatening to open. "I should go," she said. He nodded, but his gaze never left hers. As she turned to leave, he spoke again, calmly, decisively. "Sophia isn't your real name." She froze. The silence that followed was absolute. "You prefer it," Min-jun continued, his tone almost gentle. "But it's not the one you were born with." She turned slowly, her face pale. "What are you talking about?" "I know who you are," he said. "And I know why you're here." Her heart hammered in her chest, a warning siren she couldn't ignore. "You're mistaken." He shook his head. "I know about your daughter." The words landed like a blade. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The carefully constructed distance between them shattered, replaced by something far more dangerous than desire. Recognition. And the unspoken knowledge that whatever this was between them, it came with a warning label neither of them could afford to ignore. What he did was just a prank on her, he didn't really know much about her. He was just trying to get information from her, and that was the only way he could get it. About her daughter, it was information given to him by his assistant. Anne. Min-jun was also told that she had a life before. After the rain had stopped, everywhere was still quiet but the night still clung to the windows like a held breath. Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if holding her body together required conscious effort. The hotel room was calm with only the amber glow of a single lamp. Kim Min-jun leaned against the opposite wall, silent for once, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. She had asked for time. He had given her minutes. Now the truth pressed against her ribs, sharp and insistent. There was no more room to keep it locked inside. Helix wasn't just a company, she said finally, her voice barely louder than the hum of the city outside. It was a cage. Min-jun straightened, his expression tightening. He didn't interrupt. He sensed, instinctively, that if he did, she might fracture completely. They told the world it was biotech innovation, longevity, regenerative medicine, rewriting the limits of human aging. Her lips curved into something bitter. But Helix was built on theft. On stolen research. On people who disappeared. She lifted her gaze to him then, eyes dark and unguarded. "I was one of them." The words landed with a quiet violence. Min-jun pushed away from the wall, moving closer, but stopping short of touching her. "You were working for them?" "Yes." "And no." She swallowed. "I was recruited young. Top of my class. Desperate to prove myself. They gave me resources no one else could, funding, labs, protection. I thought I was building something revolutionary." Her fingers dug into the fabric of her sleeves. "I didn't understand the cost until it was too late." "What cost?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then exhaled. "Control. Total control. They owned my work, my movement, my identity. They rewrote my name in their systems. My life became classified." Min-jun's jaw clenched. "Who did this?" Sophia's laugh was short, humorless. "The man at the top." She stood, pacing now, unable to stay still. "Kim Min-jun." The name struck like a blade. Min-jun froze. The air shifted, thick and dangerous. "My uncle," he said slowly. Sophia stopped mid-step. "You know him." "I know what he lets people know." Min-jun's voice was cold now, disbelief and fury threading through it. Industrial titan. Government advisor. Philanthropist. She turned back to him, eyes shining. Monster. The word hung between them. He didn't just oversee Helix, she continued. He curated it. Every project, every subject. Especially mine. Her voice wavered, then steadied. He was obsessed with legacy. With outrunning death. He believed biology was the final empire. Min-jun's hands curled into fists. Pieces were aligning in his mind, corporate shadows, disappearances, the invisible walls that always seemed to close around his investigations. The research you stole, he said. It was his. Yes. And not just his. Her throat worked. It was mine. Silence stretched, taut as wire. Before Min-jun could speak, a sharp knock echoed through the room. Both of them turned as the door burst open and two operatives dragged a man inside, bloody, bound, barely conscious. David Chin. Sophia's breath caught. David. They dropped him into a chair. One of the operatives spoke quickly. He was tailing the building. CIA credentials. We confirmed. The words detonated. Min-jun stared at David, shock giving way to rage. CIA? David coughed, blood at the corner of his mouth. Not here for you, he rasped. His eyes found Sophia's. I tried to warn you. Sophia stepped forward despite Min-jun's instinctive move to block her. Warn me about what? David laughed weakly. That running doesn't work. Min-jun slammed a hand onto the table. You've been spying on her. Protecting, David shot back. Or trying to. Kim Min has resources you can't imagine. Sophia's knees felt unsteady. You work for him. No, David said sharply. I work against him. Or I did. Until I got too close. Min-jun's gaze sharpened. How close? David lifted his head, meeting Min-jun's eyes with something like grim respect. Close enough to learn the truth. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. Say it. David exhaled. Kim Min isn't just corrupt. He's experimenting on himself. Has been for decades. Min-jun's blood ran cold. The longevity trials, David continued. They failed. Every subject rejected the treatments. Cellular breakdown. Madness. Death. Sophia closed her eyes. She had known this. She had seen the data. But then, David said, there was a breakthrough. Sophia opened her eyes slowly. A genetic anomaly, he said. Perfect compatibility. Self-repairing telomeres. Stable integration. Min-jun turned to Sophia. What is he talking about? Her defenses shattered. He didn't just control my work, she said, tears spilling now, unchecked. He controlled me. Min-jun felt something inside him splinter. Sophia. He wasn't just my employer, she whispered. She looked at Min-jun, really looked at him, as if bracing for impact. He was my husband. The room seemed to tilt. Min-jun staggered back a step, the word echoing in his skull. Husband. The implications roared through him, power, ownership, legal chains disguised as devotion. You were married to him, he said, disbelief sharpening into fury. Yes, she said, voice breaking. It was part of the bargain. Protection. Access. Survival. She pressed a hand to her chest. I told myself it was temporary. That I was in control. David lowered his gaze. I wasn't, she finished. Min-jun's obsession, once rooted in curiosity and desire, curdled into something far darker. Protective. Violent. His uncle's face flashed in his mind, not as the composed magnate he knew, but as the architect of her pain. When Sophia turned away, gathering her coat, Min-jun reacted instantly. "Where are you going?" "To get Emma," she said. "Before he does." "You're not going alone." She faced him, desperation etched into her features. "This is my mess." "It's my family," he snapped. "And my responsibility." David coughed again. "You don't understand," he said hoarsely. "Emma isn't just leveraged." Sophia froze. "What do you mean?" David lifted his head. "She's the key." Min-jun felt a dread coil in his gut. "Kim Sun-min's experiment finally worked," David said. "Not on you." Sophia's breath hitched. "On her," he finished. The words crushed the room into silence. "Emma's genetics," David continued, "are what he's been chasing his entire life. She isn't collateral damage." Sophia shook her head, horror dawning. "No. She's the prize," David said. Sophia's knees gave out, and Min-jun caught her before she hit the floor, holding her as her sobs broke free. Outside, the city slept. And somewhere in the dark, the man who owned the past was already coming for the future. The estate lay beyond the last ribbon of city lights, tucked into a fold of forested hills where the air cooled and quiet settled like a held breath. Kim Min-jun drove the final stretch himself. No convoy. No cameras. Just the low hum of the engine and the dark, glassy road reflecting the moon. Sophia sat in the back with Emma asleep against her shoulder, her small hand curled in the fabric of Sophia's coat as if the world might drift away without it. Min-jun watched them in the rearview mirror, not as assets or liabilities, not as evidence of a story he needed to control, but as two lives he had pulled from a storm and brought somewhere dry. The gates opened without a sound. The house was not ostentatious. It was built low and wide, stone and wood blending into the hillside, warm light spilling from windows like an invitation rather than a warning. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and clean linen. Sophia felt the tightness in her chest ease a fraction, the kind of release that came when the body realized, belatedly, that it might be safe. Min-jun carried Emma upstairs himself. He moved carefully, as if each step mattered. Sophia followed, her hand brushing the banister, grounding herself in the simple reality of the place, the soft carpet, the muted art, the quiet that did not feel like surveillance but like privacy. When he returned, he paused in the doorway. For a moment they simply looked at each other, the space between them charged with everything they had not said on the drive. "You can rest here," he said. "No one will come." Sophia nodded. "Thank you." It felt inadequate, the word. It barely touched the weight of what he had done, what he was still doing. But Min-jun seemed to understand. He inclined his head, a small acknowledgement, and turned away, giving her the gift of choice. Later, when the house had settled and Emma's breathing evened out, Sophia found him on the terrace. The night pressed close, the forest alive with small, unseen movements. Min-jun stood at the railing, hands resting on cool stone, his posture composed but not rigid. "I used to think power was distance," he said without turning. "The farther away you were from people, the safer you were." Sophia stepped beside him. "And now?" "And now I think distance is just another kind of fear." The words hung between them. She studied his profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the tiredness he never allowed to reach his eyes. She had spent so long being watched, measured, reduced to what others wanted from her. Here, in this quiet, he looked at her like she was not a puzzle to solve but a truth to accept. "You don't ask questions," she said. "I don't ask the wrong ones." A breath of laughter escaped her before she could stop it, brittle but real. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. "I survived because I learned when to be quiet." Min-jun turned then, fully facing her. "You survived because you're strong." "No," she said softly. "I survived because I was useful." Something dark flickered behind his calm. Not here. Their closeness was not accidental. It was drawn, inevitable. The space between them narrowed until she could feel the warmth of him, steady and restrained. He did not touch her. The restraint was the point. It told her he saw her, not as something to claim, but as someone who chose. "I don't know what this is," she said. "Neither do I," he replied. "But I know what it isn't. It isn't a transaction." The word landed hard. She swallowed, nodding. In that moment, something fractured and reformed inside her. The old rules, survive, adapt, endure, shifted to make room for something dangerous and hopeful. Trust. A chime echoed faintly from inside the house, breaking the spell. Min-jun's gaze sharpened. He checked his phone, his jaw tightening. "They're here," he said. "My uncle's team." Sophia's heart lurched. "Already?" "I expected him to move fast." He met her eyes. "Stay inside." "With Emma." "No," she said, surprising herself with the certainty of it. "I won't hide." He studied her, then nodded once. "Then stand behind me." The confrontation unfolded in the front courtyard under stark lights. Vehicles rolled in, men fanning out with practiced efficiency. At their center was Kim Min, immaculate as ever, his expression one of mild disappointment rather than alarm. "Min-jun," he said. "You've made this unnecessarily public." "You made it personal," Min-jun replied, his voice carrying. "This ends tonight." Min's smile thinned as officers stepped forward, warrants read aloud. The balance shifted visibly. Whispers rippled through the assembled men as the reality set in. The heir was not just defying his uncle, he was dismantling him. As cuffs closed around Min's wrists, he did not resist. His gaze drifted past Min-jun, landing on Sophia with unsettling calm. "You were never meant to survive," he said, almost kindly. "Only the child was." The word struck like a blade. Sophia's breath caught, her hand flying instinctively to her abdomen, a ghost of a memory she had buried deep. Min-jun moved instantly, placing himself between them, his presence a shield. "Enough," Min-jun said. "Take him away." Min's smile lingered even as he was led off, a promise of consequences yet to come. The courtyard emptied, the noise receding into the night. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. Min-jun turned to Sophia, his expression fierce with concern. "Are you?" She nodded, though her legs trembled. "I will be." He reached out then, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand settled at her back, steadying, grounding. The contact sent a quiet shock through her, not of desire alone but of recognition. This was safety, unexpected and profound. "We'll face whatever comes," he said. "Together." Sophia leaned into him, just enough to feel supported. The future loomed uncertain, sharpened by revelations and threats, but beneath it all was a new truth, raw, undeniable, and irreversible. The room where Sophia uncovered Project Genesis did not look like the birthplace of devastation. It was too clean for that. Glass walls, soft white lighting, the quiet hum of servers tucked behind panels like obedient thoughts. Even the chair she sat in felt considerate, molded to the human body as if the truth it held would need cushioning. She had expected a monster, files dripping with cruelty, photographs sharp enough to cut. Instead, there were timelines. Decision trees. Risk assessments written in language so neutral it felt obscene. Subject S47 introduced to asset KMJ under alias Mikhail Jang. Objective, emotional entanglement leading to genetic linkage. Sophia read the line again, her eyes tracing the letters like they might rearrange themselves if she stared long enough. 7 years ago. She remembered the city where they met, the way the air had smelled like rain and metal, the way she had been lost and laughing at herself when he appeared with a map folded wrong. She remembered thinking that fate had finally learned her name. Project Genesis had learned it first. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled. The documents were meticulous. Psychological profiles. Predictive modeling. Notes on how proximity plus shared stress accelerated attachment. How her past losses increased susceptibility to deep bonding. How Kim Min-jun, though he had not been called that then, had been selected for his capacity for fixation and moral elasticity under directive pressure. She swallowed hard. Their attraction had been anticipated. Their conversations nudged. Their conflicts engineered to resolve in closeness. Even the night that had changed everything, the night she had let herself believe in the reckless possibility of happiness, was annotated as a successful convergence. Her pregnancy was listed as an outcome. Sophia pushed back from the desk, her chair whispering across the floor. She pressed her palm to her mouth, not to stifle a scream but to keep herself from laughing. The sound was right there, rising like hysteria, like grief's mischievous twin. So that was why she had always felt watched in memory. Why joy had come with a shadow. The door behind her opened. Kim Min-jun stopped just inside the threshold. He had followed her without knowing why, drawn by the sudden, hollow quiet that had opened between them an hour earlier. When he saw her face, whatever question he had prepared collapsed. "What did you find?" he asked. Sophia turned slowly. The distance between them felt theatrical, staged even now. She wondered, absurdly, if the room had been designed for this angle. "You," she said. Her voice surprised her with its steadiness. "Or rather, you as planned." He frowned, stepping closer. "Sophia." 7 years ago, she continued, lifting the tablet and letting it fall onto the desk with a soft, final sound. "You were placed near me deliberately. Under another name. Another life. You weren't passing through. You were assigned." The color drained from his face. It was immediate, like a system failure. "No," he said, but the word lacked conviction. He reached for the tablet, his hands suddenly clumsy. As he read, something inside him began to fracture audibly. His breath shortened. His shoulders curled inward, as if he could fold himself away from the words. "I didn't know," he whispered. "Not at first. They told me it was observation. Influence. I didn't know it would," he stopped, choking on the sentence. "I didn't know I would love you." Sophia watched him, cataloging the reactions she had once read like scripture. Guilt, she had learned, could look like sincerity. But this was annihilation. He sank into the chair opposite her, elbows on his knees, hands twisted together. "Everything I felt," he said hoarsely, "I thought I chose it. I thought I chose you." "You did," she said quietly. "At least. I think you did." He looked up, eyes rimmed red. "How can you say that?" "Because choice can exist inside a trap," she replied. "Even if the trap shouldn't have been there." He shook his head, a bitter sound tearing out of him that might have been a laugh. "They turned my capacity to care into a weapon. And I let it happen. I stayed. I kept lying by omission. I told myself I was protecting you, but really I was just afraid you'd see me for what I am." Rage followed on the heels of his shame, sharp and directionless. His fist struck the arm of the chair. "I poisoned everything. How could you ever forgive that?" Sophia closed her eyes. Because she had already walked part of this road alone. "I need to show you something," she said. She tapped the screen again, navigating to a different file, one she had accessed before he entered the room. A medical report. A genetic analysis conducted quietly, years ago, under the pretense of routine testing. She turned the tablet toward him. Kim stared at the screen. At the conclusion highlighted in clinical blue. Paternity probability, 99.9998%. The room went utterly silent. "I'm Emma's father," he said, the words barely audible. It was not a question. "Yes." His breath stuttered. He pressed his hand to his chest as if something had struck him there. But, you told me. I told you I wasn't sure, Sophia said. Because I wasn't sure how. Not why. Just how. He looked at her then, truly looked, as if seeing the past rearranged itself behind her eyes. You knew? I suspected, she said. From the moment she was born and had your eyes. From the way she reacts to certain sounds. From the way you both tilt your heads when you're listening. But suspicion isn't proof. And proof without context is just another wound. She took a breath. I didn't know Project Genesis existed. I didn't know our connection had been engineered. I only knew that whatever had brought us together had left something real behind. Tears slipped down his face, unguarded now. I don't deserve her, he said. Or you. That, Sophia replied, standing, is not a decision you get to make alone. She moved closer, each step deliberate. When she reached him, she placed the tablet aside and rested her hand over his clenched fists. He flinched, then stilled, as if afraid to move and shatter the moment. They tried to rewrite our romance, she said. To turn it into data. But they failed at one thing. He looked up, searching. They couldn't control what endured. His voice broke. What if it's all contaminated? Every memory, every feeling. Then we clean it, she said. We decide what stays. For the first time since the truth had surfaced, something like hope flickered in his expression, fragile, uncertain, but alive. Outside the glass walls, the servers continued their quiet labor, processing outcomes that no longer mattered. Inside, two people sat amid the wreckage of a manipulated past, holding a future that had survived every attempt to be engineered.